Hello, this is Yahweh God Elohim doing my Rockafellow files of myself. I am still David Rockafellow Banneker Elohim, Yahweh Elohim. Love is my name. And this message should be very brief. In my Rockafellow files, I'm trying to still deal with the psyche and the development of the female nature with their creator named Love Alohem Elohim, of whom I am associated with myself, El Yahweh. All right, so uh, 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 my system was about sacred and secular names when I created the bank accounts in 1938 with the banking system and Grander Discovery. I had to figure out how to become a person, me, God, El Yahweh, with the energy of Elohim and El Elohim in my own system on planet Venus, where these United States and the United States of America eventually began with me after 1938 with me, David Rockafellow, Yahweh Elohim. All right. So what was happening? Electromagnetism is the theory of my quadruple genius discovery of how to become a person. Me, I am God, El Yahweh, with myself, Elohim, Elohim. All right. So we have the Elohim, the all-inclusive Elohim, when I speak this word Elohim. And then we also have the Elohim, that's the outer limits of Elohim. When I speak this word Elohim, it answers me. And then we have the nucleus of Elohim, which is new. So I could utilize the nucleus of Elohim, me, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, with my name Love. And that's what I began to do. The quadruple genius, me, David Rockafellow Banneker, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, Love is my name. And I had to use sacred and secular, that we have name Elohim word. We have name Elohim word. So I had to do the same thing with my word Yahweh, with my name El Yahweh. All right. So with females, the development of their psyche and their consciousness, eventually, I became a person um, utilizing sacred and secular momentum of the inertia that Elohim answers me when I speak Elohim, me, El Yahweh. So I did my system. I started the Titanic, which is recent history of all of the ones that's in the consciousness of females with my banking system, but they never had any females that gave birth to those that were in my soul. For example, William Shakespeare's myself, Yahweh Elohim, and I did Felix Hoffman of Mercedes with myself, Yahweh Elohim, and I also created a two-son overture, Atlas, God, Yahweh Elohim, myself, the first Spanish speaker of the Zulu nation, even with the continent of Atlantis. And those are three in my 1700s that females did not give birth to have learned of George Washington and George Washington Johnson, which was the first one called Thomas Jefferson, that the females never gave birth to, but it's in their consciousness. So I had to create a psyche to try to understand the female nature with psyche. And then with George Washington Johnson, which was Thomas Jefferson, I did King Elohim, which is David Banneker, 1823, and I did Frederick Douglass. I created my banking structure calendar by 1883, and we have Buddy Bolden in 1877 that utilized George Washington Carver with myself, Booker T. Washington, all or my souls with my mind, me, Yahweh, God, Elohim, I am. So females never gave birth to any of us in the 1800s. So that would be a void inside of their consciousness of why the hell did they hear of William Shakespeare and a two-son overture and George Washington and those like that. And the Washingtons that we owned our banks in the 1800s. And then I used Calvin Trice Spencer Murphy with Booker T. Washington, and who worked with the Henry Ford Motors Company, where I am God, El Yahweh, and the second creator, Elohim, I am, doing sacred and secular while I was becoming a person with King Elohim, David Banneker, in 1823 to right now, 2023. All right? And so Calvin Trice Spencer Murphy, that worked with Ford Motors in 1903, actually became the teacher. And so I became the protege, David Rockafellow of Calvin Trice Spencer Murphy, for the banking system and Grander Discovery, me, Yahweh Elohim. Then we had Langston Hughes, who was the only one that knew Edgar Allan Poe, who was the only one that utilized and tutelaged Thomas Paine and Mark Twain. And those were my writers where I was creating relationship with electromagnetism just with the word role. Me, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, the creator named Love. So by Langston Hughes, By 1923, you heard of the Harlem Renaissance, but the females never gave birth to Langston Hughes or Edgar Allan Poe or Thomas Paine or Mark Twain, neither. So then with Rockafellow, I started doing my contracts, which I was noticed for 1938, where after 1938, I put out Goldie of the Brooklyn Dodgers with myself, Jackie Robinson, that I already put out Jack Johnson, the boxer, and I was already Paul Robeson doing comedy shows and minstrel shows, and I had already did me, Yahweh Elohim, and I already put out Paul Lawrence Dunbar, that I created hotels and motels in my banking system with my banking structure while I was becoming a person at the quadruple genius of breaking into my own system, which I finally did in 1953, me, Lord Eisenhower, 1953, when I, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, sent the grand discovery of computers to these United States of America in 1953, and I started doing my Buddy Bolden files of entertainment with She's a Bad Mama Jamma, and I eventually did the Sun Ra Orchestra with Duke Ellington Orchestra, and we eventually put out the Count Basie Orchestra and things like that. And we started doing our electrical instruments, which came out in the 1970s. Lord Eisenhower became the God of Love, Christ, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, by February 2nd, 1963, when I started weapons stockpile for these United States, and I started doing a caller identification, which is called caller ID with automatic redial. I did that February 2nd, 1963, and video funding, like with Do We Have a Problem? And I started my Mustang Sally, that I was still with Henry Ford Motors Company in the Vietnam War, and then I had to become the Prince. After becoming that Lord Eisenhower was actually the Lord of Hope, Yahweh Elohim, for people, and then I became the God of Love, Christ, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, in the Vietnam War, to find Caligastia, the book of Urantia, calling itself the devil. And I finally did that after April 4th, 1968, me, Yahweh Elohim, when we sent to Rothschild, April 4th, 1968, from 2nd Street in Figueroa, and I found Caligastia and killed it on top of the Getty Museum near Sepulveda and Sunset, near the 405 freeway, in 1971, me, Yahweh Elohim. And I took the name Caligastia, that you're not the devil called Judas of Jesus Christ either. And I created gas stations in my system, me, David Rockafellow-Banneker, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, after 1971, and sent you George Duke, that you had to face the music because I had Bill Duke Ellington for Jesus Christ. Where my name Grant Green in West Montgomery was about me, Herbert Hoover, from 1955, with Lord Eisenhower in 1953, me, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, checking my own system, just as George Washington Johnson was checking who the hell knew of George Washington in 1777, Thomas Jefferson, and that's what we were doing. And so eventually, in 1975, I had 3 calendar systems. I was from Bethlehem, Calvin Trice Spencer Murphy, Yahweh Elohim, I'm the prophet from Bethlehem, and I had already started these United States. Me, George Washington, Enosh, Yahweh Elohim. And then I had the calendar started with these United States. Me, Lord Eisenhower, Elohim, number 1. The God, God is El Yahweh, El Elohim. Grand Discovery, 1953. So I only had a 40-year dream from 1938 to 1978, and then I started my new inheritance, but I was still creating this planet, Venus, the planet of Love Elohim, which I completed July 4th, 1979. Me, Yahweh Elohim, of this planet, united my satellites and my telescopes as a quadruple genius with my Smithsonian Institute of Grand Discovery of Video and Audio recorders that I did have at Henry Ford Motors Company in 1903 with me. I am God, El Yahweh, and the second creator of Elohim I am. So by April 2nd of 1980, I had my real estate companies that I was starting. We had the Alton Southern Botanical Project, April 2nd, 1980 with me, Yahweh Elohim, on this planet. And that's where I started my system where I'm at now. And then by February 2nd, 1983, Buddy Bolden, Elohim, Yahweh Elohim, allowed us to become the Prince, and we started doing some of our entertainment, like When Doves Cry, with Prince and Purple Rain, Prince in the Revolution, When Doves Cry, The Time, and we did Little Corvette and Raspberry Beret. We did that in the 1980s. as Becoming a Prince, and we did one more called Kiss. While I was doing my song production. So that's my Rockafellow file about sacred and secular, about how I'm using electromagnetism to help the female psyche with their consciousness to understand all of the men or males that the females heard of, part of my banking system with me, Yahweh God Elohim, that females never gave birth to other than Jesus Christ. And so that this Christmas, which is 3 days before Christmas, I suppose, in the calendar year 2023, where I'm finishing my calendar year, that right now it's 1823 with me, David Banneker, King Elohim of God, El Yahweh, 1823 in my banking structure with Frederick Douglass, and it's 1923 with me, Langston Hughes, with myself, Edgar Allan Poe, with Calvin Trice Spencer Murphy, of Henry Ford Motors Company with me. I am God El Yahweh and the second creator Elohim. I am 1823 and 1923. And it's me, actually David Rockafellow Banneker right now, with my bank account with Kenneth Hahn and Langston Hughes, now with my Wells Fargo of Frederick Douglass, Augustus Washington Bailey, that I am God, El Yahweh, hate Elohim, love Elohim, creator name, love, I am. Thank you. This is my Rockafellow file, and we'll keep trying to work on it for the female psyche for their creator name, love, which is Elohim, Elohim, and myself, God, El Yahweh, in unison, united with ourselves. Thank you. David Rockafellow. Pimp is a butterfly.